Now, Keith Noreika, Patomak Global Partners, former controller of the currency under President Donald Trump. All right, Keith, take a whack. I know information is maybe less than optimal, but the idea is all these big banks are going to move their deposits that they allegedly got from First Republic and maybe Silicon Valley Bank. They're going to move them back. Now, I'm not sure how you do that. Somebody's got to ask the depositors. But why don't you ruminate as a former controller of the currency?
All right. Well, thanks, Larry, for having me on. It reminds me of one of the old sayings of J.P. Morgan you didn't quote, which was, that's what closed doors are for, right?
Very good. Very good.
I think we'll find out, and certainly my security detail would never deny Fox an interview.
Got it.
But look, I think the devil's in the details. I mean, obviously, if you're moving customer funds back to a bank like First Republic, there's going to be an issue of what the customer signed up for, the credit risk of J.P. Morgan or one of the mega banks or the credit risk of First Republic. We've seen sort of in slow motion a run basically funded by the Federal Reserve's term bank lending facility on First Republic that's gotten us to today. So instead of it failing on Monday morning, we've gotten to Thursday afternoon. But obviously, a rescue package has to be agreed upon. I think one of your earlier comments was spot on. I mean, we're almost back to the point where we don't have a Federal Reserve or an FDIC. We have the banking industry taking matters into its own hands. Obviously creative, but we're going to have to see whose money are they putting in. Is it own cash of the banking institutions? And as a bank regulator, you're going to want to make sure that that doesn't imperil the safety and soundness of the largest institutions, because then obviously we have a much larger problem on our hands.
Well, also, it just occurred to me. I mean, I just heard this about an hour and a half ago on Sandra Smith's show, and then I've made phone calls and tried to read the news stories about it. But, maybe they want an ounce of flesh on this, a pound of flesh. I mean, they may want changes in management of First Republic. I don't know, by the way, if any of this includes Silicon Valley Bank. I'm going to fence that off for a second. The stories are about First Republic. Maybe they want changes in management. Maybe they want changes in their risk strategies. The duration risk is what brought down Silicon Valley Bank. The mismatch between assets and liability. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they want to put board members on there. I don't know that either. I mean, you put 10 big banks in a room together, Keith, I'm not sure they can agree on anything. So this business about we're going to get an announcement tonight, which maybe we will, just seems kind of far-fetched to me. And actually, the more I talk to you about it, the more far-fetched the whole thing sounds. But, you're the former controller of the currency. Yeah. Did you ever pull anything off like this?
No, I didn't have the time to do it, and our times were good, not bad. Thankfully, they started them off since I was the first one in there. But look, there are a lot of things that you said would give rise to a lot of concerns under banking regulation, which obviously I've studied for the past 25 years. Another bank can't control. One bank can't control another bank, let alone a consortium of banks controlling another bank. Without like super scrutiny and having to comply with the Bank Holding Company Act, among others, and the Interlocks Act. To put directors on there. So, while an unsecured creditor of that magnitude clearly would want, some kind of security or say over where they're putting the money, there are also other legal and regulatory impediments that are going to have to be overcome.
Like what? Just for a quick example. Just one.
Well, like you can't be a director or a management official on a board of two large banks at the same time that are unrelated in ownership, right? So that would give a big problem potentially to having somebody on the board. You can't control the actions of the company without acquiring something known as control under the Bank Holding Company Act, and that would give rise to prior application and antitrust issues and the like.
And they might want their pound of flesh. They may want their own boards. I mean, who knows what they're going to ask for? These things could take a whole lot of time. To me, it's always been a mystery, and getting you here as a former controller of the currency, why this FDIC crowd, their left-wing ideology, they hate the big banks. They just hate the big bank. They could have sold Silicon Valley Bank last weekend. It was there. We now know there were bidders. There are still bidders all week long, whether they're banks or private equity funds or others of the same ilk, and they wouldn't do it. And to me, Keith, that has been a major contributor to this whole problem or crisis or whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is they're making the big banks bigger by, like, refusing to do normal things you would do in this situation. I mean, the most normal thing you would do as a regulator, again, having been a student of this for 25 years, is you would arrange for a shotgun wedding, a merger of a stronger partner. And, you know, or you would have private equity come in, right, and recapitalize the bank, which both can be done. But the hostility of the far extremist left to bank mergers is off the charts. I mean, the fellow who has my job now approved a merger recently of a bank where a foreign bank didn't want to invest in, you know, basic things like bank secrecy, AML controls, to a U.S. bank that did want to make that investment. And, you know, so the regulators had a true incentive to do this, like it was solving their problem. And Elizabeth Warren went over to a left-wing think tank after and excoriated him for doing that. So, of course, there's going to be hesitancy in a pinch where that process took a year to get done. And how do you do it in a weekend if you're worried about what the fallout's going to be?
And ironically, now the FDIC and the others are going to J.P. Morgan and the big boys and said, oh, please give us their deposits back. Give us their deposits back. I mean, you know, what goes around comes around, only in Washington,
Well, the problem
D.C.
is they've scared everyone off, Larry. There's no one left.
Good point.
No one wants to come to the party. Yeah.
Keith Noreika, thank you very, very much. We appreciate your help. Short notice today, but it's great stuff.